Good evening. This is Debra V. Wilson. It is Sunday, the 11th of November, 2018. The time is 2200 hours and 11 minutes, and that's GMT. As I'm doing my research, I've been doing a fair bit of thinking, which is a good thing, about the way in which civil society and civilians have the spaces and places and ways they have engaging with the national security apparatus, and that's including people, and what that looks like and how that is and how it's perceived. And so my scope is Canada, Israel, and the UK, and I'm in the UK. In Canada, I feel as though there are more spaces that are available for a civilian to maintain themselves and construct themselves in ways other than an absolute binary. So I think you can be left of center, critical of some aspects of the state, but still feel you have a right and participate through activism or as an individual and opine and reach out and critique and analyze the national security model from a bottom-up perspective. I feel as if there's more spaces for people, civilians, to do that openly and transparently than, say, in the UK. I think my experience is that people tend to construct their identities around issues. They when it comes to security, around binaries. So if they're critical of the state in one respect, that flows through in terms of how the state or what the state is doing from a national security perspective in country, so that the construct can be, I think, I'm left or right of center, I agree or disagree with the state, I'm not going to about this, that, and the other. And I think that can influence whether people feel they have the right, or if they're maintaining their true authentic selves, if they were to publicly participate in activism or to publicly participate as an individual. And in the UK, there are actually a myriad of ways in which you can write a letter to the state. And you can send an email. I just gave my age, I'm 61. You can send an email to the state. There are all sorts of ways in which you can, as a civilian, opine on your understanding of how and what the state is doing in keeping us safe. AKA, you can critique the national security model. I'm continuing to try to understand why that exists. Now, so I think it's, of my three countries, the easiest and the most, I think there's a plethora of spaces and ways. When I was in Canada, I met people left of center that were doing research that was utilized by the security apparatus, and by that I'm meaning CSIS, Canadian Security Intelligence Service, and the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and some people were hard left and openly talked about the fact that they had sent in some research, they were seeking to send in research, they were hoping to do that. And so it wasn't, I found there was less of this binary of I'm left of center, I'm a hard left of center, I don't want anything to do with that. The way I experienced it is that people constructed it were more likely, I think, in Canada, and this is just my opinion at this point. I'm in the midst of doing my research. In Canada, I think they constructed it. I'm a citizen here. I live here. I have a right to analyze and critique, whether it's from an academic perspective, a civil society perspective, or as an individual. Then I think in the UK there's certainly activists and civil society activists that critique the national security model, But I think that the way in which how that is named and labeled in left of center in Canada, I found more so people took the attitude, I may not agree with the government, I may agree with the government, but I'm here in this shared space, and we all want to be safe. But I found people here in the UK I have found to be equally as concerned about the individual safety and collective safety. I found here in the UK there's a robust concern and involvement by about matters of national security and understanding from a bottom-up perspective and voicing that to the government. I just think that how people self-define that interest. Sometimes and this is my opinion, I think it's more so an us against them, and we want you to get it right, whereas my opinion, and I will go back and correct this podcast if that is incorrect, but I found people in Canada more likely, I'm talking collectively, to take the opinion that we're in this together, we've got to figure this out together, and that's why I'm doing this. Now in Israel, I don't know. I'm just beginning my engagement with Israel. I went for the first time in 2017. I had an opportunity to engage with some civil society. I had the opportunity, I had an engagement with the security apparatus, the Shabak, for personal reasons. I certainly felt so I haven't had enough experience in Israel, but the organizations I engaged with were, or observed, were our left of center, feminist, and interestingly enough, they took the attitude, one would think, given the current relational dynamics between the Israelis and the Palestinians, that people would be more likely to skew towards the British modality of us against them. No, I actually found the attitudes of the women activists, academics, to more so take the Canadian approach. We're in this together. We need to figure this out. And to opine and critique the national security model from a bottom-up perspective, from that vantage point, from that position, from that understanding, and assign meaning to self and place and identity and all that stuff. So I'm still working on it. I have work that I want to do. Winnipeg is very dear to me. I need to travel to more places in Canada. So I know I'm going back to Canada, and actually Israel is closer to me. Geography is not my thing. So, but I think I'm actually closer to Israel now than I am to Canada. In any case, I'm looking forward to going back to Israel. I'm looking forward to the extent I can, engage well with civil society, to the extent I can learn and understand the engagement between civil society and the national security pieces. I'm particularly interested in the Shabak in Israel. In the UK, it's the counterterrorism police and MI5's engagement with those relationships between civil society, and so that would be counterterrorism police, SO15, and MI5. And then in Canada, it would be civil society's engagements, those relational dynamics would be between CSIS, Canadian Security Intelligence Service, and the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Okay, this is Debra V. Wilson, just a wee bit of a podcast before I head off to sleep. Thank you very much.